University of Agricultural Sciences. And at the end, Susanna Weibinger will take over because I have to leave for the airport. It takes some time to get there. I just want to ask from the organizing committee, if you have managed to take the device where you change pictures from the other room, please give it back to the technicians and they will give you your own device. It's been some kind of exchange there, so please do that. Now we need to get going with the program. And the first speaker of this session is Emma Whitfeldt Jensen. So you will talk about the importance of motherhood. So welcome.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Yeah, my name is Emma Whitfeldt Jensen, and I will talk to you about some of the preliminary results from my PhD, which will be on the motivation of dairy cows to nurse their calves. So in most Western dairy production, cow and calf contact is very limited. Most often, the calf is separated from the cow within 24 hours after calving. And this is in part done to ensure more saleable milk for the farmer. You can restrict how much milk the calf is drinking, and you can also easier get the cow to let milk down in the parlor. And this early separation is also believed to reduce the separation stress experienced by both cow and calf when we do separate them, as it is believed that cow and calf are not able to form a very strong bond as you separate them this early. However, this procedure is increasingly critiqued by especially consumers, and it's also an area of research that is receiving increasing attention. And especially the benefits that calves gain from increased cow contact has been the basis of a lot of research. When they are together with the cow, they have ad libitum access to milk, so they typically grow faster, and they also perform less abnormal behavior, and when they mature, they usually grow up to be good producers and also good mothers themselves. However, very little is known about the benefits of the cow, especially the behavioral and affective states benefits of the cow. So that is actually the subject of our research. So we're interested in seeing whether cows are motivated to perform different maternal behaviors, and that is because strongly motivated behaviors can constitute behavioral needs. And access to behavioral needs can increase the animal's welfare, while preventing the performance of strongly motivated behaviors can reduce the animal welfare and actually cause suffering. Therefore, in our study, we aim to investigate how strong dairy cows' motivation is to nurse their own calf compared to only sniffing and licking the calf, and how different cow-calf contact management and weaning strategies affect the cow's motivation to nurse their calves. So our hypothesis is that an increased fence line separation as a form of weaning will reduce the cow's motivation to nurse. And now I'll tell you how we tried to investigate this. So we had two different cow-calf contact treatments. We had the full-time contact and part-time contact, and they are represented on the two circles on the right. So the top circle is for the full-time and the bottom is for the part-time, and each circle represents 24 hours of the day. So the light blue is when cow and calf are together, and the dark blue is when they're separated. So full-time, they're together the entire day and night, only separated during milking, and the part-time are together during the day, but are separated between evening and morning milking when the cow is in a different barn. We had 12 pairs in each of these treatments. This strategy ran for the first 7 weeks of the experiment, and then from week 8, we induced two different weaning treatments. So half of each of the contact treatments would experience one weaning treatment, while the other half would experience another one. And one of the weaning treatments was to gradually increase fence line separation, where we reduced the amount of time cow and calf had free access to each other by half. So for full-time contact, they were together from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. And the partial contact were together from 11 a.m. until evening milking. And then the other half of the weaning treatment was the unchanged contact, where they just continued on the same schedule as they had done the first 7 weeks. And the way we gradually increased the fence line separation was to put the calves inside the calf crib, where we closed it off, so cow and calf would still have visual and auditory and some tactile contact, but they would not be able to nurse. And we hope that this would reduce would increase the weaning of milk. And to avoid disturbing this time cow and calf had together, the test and training for the experiment took place before they were reunited, so between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. in the morning. So the way we measured the motivation to nurse was to use weighted pneumatic gates, and the cows were trained before testing to know these gates. So in the testing, the cow would have a choice between two gates, one leading to a pen that held the calf and one leading to an empty pen. And the empty pen would then let the cow obtain partial contact through this window. I hope you can see. So we had an opening in the wall where the cow could put her head through, as seen down here, and sniff and lick the calf. And if the cow then chose the pen holding the calf, we would release the calf from its tether and the calf would be able to nurse the cow. Testing took place in week 8, and the cow and calf had experienced a minimum of 6 days of weaning treatment, so we would expect the cow and calf to be used to this new daily schedule. So how the testing took place, the cow would enter up here in the start box and then have 2 minutes to choose between either full or partial contact. And this cow very nicely chose full contact. We could then release the calf from its tether, which happens there, close the gate behind, and then the calf very nicely could go directly over and nurse the cow. The cow could also choose to go to the other gate, to the partial contact, where we would then keep the calf tethered, and the cow could put her head through the opening or window and sniff and lick the calf, and in this way obtain partial contact. The third choice the cow had was to choose none of the gates and just stay in the start box for 2 minutes. And for the remaining statistical analysis, we grouped partial contact and no choice together as not choosing full contact. And I just want to emphasize that the results I'm showing you here are very preliminary. It's for 3 out of, in total, 7 blocks of cow-calf pairs. So for the results, we didn't see any effect of the different contact treatments on the cow's motivation to obtain full contact. So that's the top graph on the right, with the full time on the right, on the left, and the part time on the right. And light blue is go to full contact, and dark blue is not going to full contact. And as you can see, we actually only saw about half of the cows choosing to go to full contact in total. And then the bottom graph shows the effect of the weaning treatment. And here we saw, a bit to our surprise, that the increased fence line separated cows actually in a higher degree chose to go to full contact compared to the unchanged contact cows. And for all the cows that did walk through to full contact, we measured the latency to walk, and there was no difference between the 2 weaning treatments here. Then we were also interested in whether we actually saw nursing when the cows chose this full contact. And again, we didn't see any difference between the contact treatments, full-time versus part-time, here with the light blue being no nursing and the dark blue being nursing. And again, we did see a difference between the 2 weaning treatments. So 8 out of 9 increased fence line separated calves did nurse, while none of the unchanged contact calves nursed. So these results do not actually support the hypothesis I presented in the beginning. It didn't seem like this increased fence line separation worked as a weaning to reduce the motivation of cows to nurse their calves. It might instead be an effect of the time since last nursing, more than actually a reduction in the motivation to nurse. And then you might argue that the method we used, how can we know that we're measuring the cow's motivation to nurse? It might just be the cow's motivation to obtain full contact, and you might be right, but we feel that it's an indirect measurement of motivation to nurse because the cow would taught in this training before the testing that she could either obtain full contact or she could not obtain full contact, and only nursing was only possible in the full contact option. And whether the calf nursed or not depends on the calf. The cow can't just force the calf to nurse. Furthermore, there might have been an effect of a preceding test. In the weeks before this test took place, we did a maximum price paid test on the cows to measure the strength of the maternal bond to the calves. So they would previously have experienced these gates to be very, very heavy. However, again, the training took place to ensure that the cows learned that now the gates were not heavy again or anymore. And there was also a short time period of a break where the cows would not have been trained. So we hope to reset the cows' experience with these gates. And as I said, there was a huge individual variation with only half of all of the cows actually choosing to work for full contact. And there might be a plethora of reasons for this. So far, with only 12 cows in each of the treatments, we wouldn't have been able to have power enough in statistics to take care of all these different aspects. But luckily, this was only a subset of the experiment we did. So we had more than double the amount of cows running through. So I hope that next year I can come back and tell you the full story. So that was what I had to talk to you about today. And I will thank you very much for listening, and thanks for the help, the funding, and of course, thanks for the cows and calves to mostly cooperate in this.
Thank you very much, Emma. Keeping to time, I didn't even have to show the yellow sign. Do we have any questions? There's one there and another one there.
Hello, David Arney from Estonian University of Life Sciences. Did you notice whether the calves vocalized? They called to them dams. Do you think that might have had an effect?
During the test or during everything else? I guess during the test, it wasn't something we noted down too much here. We only noted it down during the training for the first experiment, because the calves and cows were both experienced in this setup. So the calves would have experienced before to be tethered in this test and be separated from their calves, from the cows. So it wasn't something we noted down here, but we have thought about looking at the videos, seeing if the calves were more unruly and if that had an effect on whether the cows walked through or not. But yeah, we have videos of every testing, so it would be something we could look into. Sadly, we don't have the sound on the video, so we can't record the vocalizations afterwards. So.
Next question is over there at the end.
Megan Hayne, I'm from the States. My question is, I really like the idea that you had sort of partial day versus full day, for the pairs and that. And I was wondering if you were seeing a lot of difference between those two groups when it came to sort of weaning and stress or sort of behaviors, vocalizations and that.
Well, we're still looking into that. We did, when we separated them completely, we have done a lot of observations on vocalizations. We haven't done the analysis yet. And I think still, before we've done any analysis, I don't dare say anything too much because it was very variable from block to block. But it's for sure something we look into. And we're also looking into whether the calves were more bonded to their moms on the partial contact versus the full contact or differently. Yeah. So it's something we're looking very much into.
Third question at the end.
Yeah. Thank you a lot for your talk, Ben Nicol from University of Bristol. I wondered if, maybe you said that before, so sorry if I missed, but I wonder how full the cows were too, like if they were if it was far away from milking, or if they felt like they had no milk to give to the calves and so on. And if milk production affected somehow the choice that they would make to get nursed.
We haven't looked into how much they gave in the milking parlor before this test, but that we would have the data, so that could also be something we could look into. I know from some literature that cows in general don't seem motivated to be milked per se, so I don't know if the udder pressure would have any effect, and if the motivation to release the udder pressure is different from the motivation to nurse, because there might be some other aspects. The release of oxytocin in contact with the calves could be a different motivation from just releasing the udder pressure. So, but yeah, we could be able to look into how much milk they gave in the milking parlor on the day of the test, for sure. Yeah, that could be interesting.
Thank you very much for your questions. A very quick question then, because we're running out of time. There are no online questions. Do we have a mic to the front? The first row. Yeah. Have to wave. Oh, yeah.
Oluwaseun from Humboldt University. I just want to ask a quick question. Did you observe any consistency in maybe a particular dam going to nurse and not taking the partial separation stuff? Or was there any different? Maybe the first day she went for the full contact and another time partial contact.
Well, yeah, the data I presented here was preliminary in that it was only the first day of testing. So some of the cows, this is part of, again, a bigger data set where we also did a maximum price paid, but because of this group of cows, only half of them passed the first day. We chose to do did they go or not. So we did do a line of testings the days afterwards on the cows that did go through this first day. So a lot of them went up to a higher price and up to the maximum price we did. So that would again be data I would love to show next year. We just finished data collection 2 weeks ago, so that's why I don't have anything to show yet.
Thank you very much, Emma. We don't have time for more questions now, so we go over to the next presentation given by Sanya Chaudhary about calf mother bull stimulus in buffaloes. So please enter the stage. You open the presentation for Chaudhary.
Hi, I'm Sanjay from India, and I'm going to talk about my PhD work, calf mother bull stimulation in buffaloes, and their effects on the behavior and welfare and dams and their calves. Actually, buffaloes are the main dairy animals of India, and they have strong maternal instincts, and there is very difficulty in separation among calves and dams. But recently, these buffaloes system is going to be intensive in the India as well as in the world. But these separations results in heavier losses to these buffaloes. And in India, basically, we are following restricted or maybe limited contact system, means before suckling or before milking, we allow the contact. But this restricted contact has resulted in very stressful conditions. I play this video. You can see there is a huge vocalization. They are standing for their calves to come and suckle in the milk parlor. So it's very annoying situation for the calves. So for that we have designed a fence line mother calf contact, and this maybe the calves are having the physical contact between with their mothers, and they are just separated with the fence line system. And for this fence line, but this calf contact, as you all know, that this affects the ovarian activity, or it delays the estrous cycle of the buffaloes. Therefore, we need one more approach to control that, and that is called biostimulation. Biostimulation is stimulatory effect of males on the female cyclicity through genital stimulation, pheromones, or other less defined cues. This is a pathway how it works. And so for this study, our main hypothesis was if we give the mother contact or a calf mother contact, then it improves the productivity performance of buffaloes, as well as it improves the behavior and welfare, may improve. And in the calf side, we hypothesize that it improves the growth, reduce abnormal behavior, then improves the may improve the calf health. But this contact may result in the any stress in the buffaloes, so we require a bull contact. So bull may improves the reproductive performance, and overall it will reduce the stress in all the animals. So with that, our objective is to investigate the effect of fence line calf mother contact on the performance, behavior, welfare, then the fence line contact on the estrous cycle, as well as we have also given the direct contact. So our third objective was that. So we have conducted 2 experiments for this. In the first experiment, there were 3 groups, and first group was no calf mother contact and no bull contact, and weaning was done immediately just after the birth. Then the second group, which is our we are following this restricted mother calf contact, and in this we have given the fence line contact. And fence line contact of the bull was given after 35 days of the postpartum parturition, and it was around the clock. The third group, you can see in the picture that how the contact is there between the mothers and the bull. There is a part on the side of fence line. Then third group was fence line calf mother contact and fence line bull contact. In this, we have one side calf between the then on the other side mother, and on the third side there was a bull. So it is a type of family package in that. In this group, we have given 0 to 5 days after the birth, the direct contact between the calf and mother, and we allowed natural suckling and as well as their own choice ad lib suckling, and to measure how many times they used to suckle when they are given their full choice access to suckle. So this was our plan. Then for the second experiment, we have given restricted mother calf contact, but there was no bull in this experiment with these restricted mothers. And this, along with the second group, was fence line calf mother bull contact. Along with this, there was a direct contact. Means the bull was introduced into the paddock of their buffaloes. And all the things was the same as it was in the first experiment. And the bull contact was given for 6 hours per day, 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the evening. So coming to the results, this is the frequencies of colostrum suckling in the direct group. It is seen that around on the first day, the calf has suckled about 20 times a day, and it is reduced subsequently, and this was observed in the second experiment also. This is the frequencies of colostrum suckling induced by the either calf or maybe mother. So we have observed that the calf has induced the mother for 15 times, but also at the same time, mothers also induce the calf to suckle. Whenever the calf is sitting for a longer period of time and sleeping, then the mother induce the calf or made to stand and suckle. So it was then this mother calf bonding, some pictures are there, how you can see after suckling the calf is resting in front of the mother. She used to keep eye on the calf. And then this, as the mother is the first teacher, it's good. But mother is the first teacher. This is the during the 0 to 5 the direct contact. The calf is enabling some concentrate, and so it was good to note that also. Now there are various approaches how we can control the abnormal behavior in calves, but we could not abolish all the abnormal behaviors. But in this study, we have found some extent that there was a very less or maybe nil or maybe there are no abnormal behaviors, cross-sucking or licking inanimate objects in the calves. This was maybe due to that there was a contact between the calf and mother, and there was a full choice of suckling the colostrum for 0 to 5 days. So during that period, the calf was he was maybe he do not learn about the licking to, or so the habit continues for that. So, and you can see in other groups that this abnormal behavior of cross-sucking and inanimate these, you can find that there is a huge frequencies of abnormal behavior in the other two groups, red one and the green one, which is green one is the restricted contact and the red one is the winning system. So in them, there is a huge abnormal behaviors, and in this other group, it is very less. Now time spent on eating and rumination. So, in the calves, higher amount of eating and rumination was there observed in the fence line contact groups as compared to the other two groups. Now this is the rumination behavior of the calf who is of just 21 days. Just he started to ruminate. These are the other two. Maybe this video. These are the calves of 30 to 45 days, and they are just particular regurgitation and chewing behavior can be noticed in these calves. Now, resting and standing of the different calves, whenever there is a high stress, then the standing and resting increases. Then, coming to the productive performance of we have observed the higher milk yield in the fence line, that is the green one, and that is the blue one. And this was actually, this is very good result for the buffaloes. If we are winning or we are giving the restricted contact, then the milk production reduces due to the cortisol secretion. So the time spent on eating, you can see that on the first day, the animal in the green line, in the blue, they have more eating time as compared to the other two groups. Same, you can see this is the video where during the 0 to 5 days, the buffalo is vocalizing for its calf, in front of, we have put some other calf, but she recognized that it is not its own. Now resting, and you can find that if we are separating, there may be a chances of higher stress, and you can find that there is more standing times in the buffaloes on the first day, then it reduces. And so these are the headouts by different groups, and in the headouts, buffaloes in the restricted as well as in the separated group, they have huge amount of headouts. Reproductive performance, there is a bull contact, so we find that we have been fence-line bull contact as well as direct contact, and we observed that the estrus was around 60 days. The ovarian activity has started, and if we can say that we have controlled the delayed if there was a no bull. In the second experiment, there is a huge good result that we found that around 51 days only they have given, and so we have also observed the various estrus behaviors on the day of estrus and before 3 days and after the 3 days. And in buffaloes, we call that they are the silent estrus animals. And due to the bull, there is an expression or higher expression of estrus behaviors, and we can easily detect the estrus and we can inseminate on the right time. So these are, and we have observed one peculiar behavior in the buffaloes for the first time, that is the flashed urination during the estrus period. And in this, what happens, while the urination, urine will flow from the vagina to udder and teats, and then it will fall on the ground. So this is for the first time that flashed urination has been observed. And coming to the conclusion, provision of calf mother bull contact provides to be proved to be effective strategy in reducing the stress and enhancing the productivity, reproductive performance, behavior, and welfare of mother buffaloes and their calves. These are some publications. Recently, we have published in the reproduction domestic animal, and I'd like to acknowledge all these my guide and institute, and in last but not least, in this ISAE for giving this opportunity to present here, and the Developing Country Congress Attendance Fellowship at this time I have got. And so thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this interesting presentation. Do we have any questions? There's one in the very far back.
Thank you for the presentation. Ben Lecor from the University of Bristol. It's not completely related, but I kept thinking about it during your talk. Do we know anything about how bulls behave with calves? Maybe different from buffaloes, but
Bulls?
yeah, I wonder if we have anything about this.
No. Actually, we given the contact bull with the only mothers, no with the calves.
You never gave like bulls
No.
access to the calves or vice
No,
versa?
no.
Thank you.
Okay. There's a question here in front.
Oluwaseun Yasiri, Humboldt University. I want to ask two questions first, brief. Can you briefly talk about the importance of that flash urination? And,
Maybe
Thank
start
you.
with the first.
Actually, in buffaloes, as I told, these are have very less behavioral expression during the estrus, and it is very difficult to detect the estrus time in the buffaloes. But if there is no bull, then it is very, very difficult to detect the estrus. But the flash urination behavior starts before the 3 days of the estrus onset, and its intensity increases, and more flashing will be there on the day of estrus. So by this method, we can easily detect that animal is in the proper estrus. So, and we have done in both the experiments and found good results. Thank you.
I think the second one
Yes.
is you had the mother buffalo with a strange calf, and you noticed a strange calf, and you noticed that the mother buffalo didn't approach.
No.
What was the response of this calf to this?
Actually, we kept those calves in front of their mother, but they do not approach to them. Just they vocalize for their own calves.
Thank you. We don't have any questions online, so please, for people online, you can write questions.
Thank you.
And I think actually we have to start with the next presentation. Thank you very much. The next presentation will be given by Heather Nev. Do cows see the forest or the trees? So welcome.
Hi everyone, I'm Heather Nev from Aarhus University, Denmark. So what I'm going to start with today is a little experiment with you guys. So you see an image here on the screen. And what I'd like you to do, on the next slide, I'm going to show you 2 images. And I'd like you to, as quickly as possible, decide which of A or B most closely matches this image. So by a show of hands, how many chose A? And how many chose B? Wow, okay. So maybe 60% B, 40% A. So those of you who chose A, according to literature, you're in a more positive state. And those who chose B are negative states. So I don't know, you guys, were you out late last night or didn't get your coffee? I'm not sure. So what this was an example of is how our emotional state affects the way that we interpret information. And the most common example of this that we have in the animal literature is a judgment bias. So this is an example of a broad term for cognitive biases. And judgment bias is one of the most common that we see right now in the animal literature. And this is specifically how we interpret ambiguous information, like this here with the glass half full versus glass half empty. But what we see less of in the literature is other types of biases. And so what you've just done here is an example of an attention bias. And so this is specifically a bias in how we attend to parts of information in our environment, or in this case, in an image. And so this task was an example of what was done back in the 70s called an attentional scope task. And what it is actually it's 2 parts to this image. So the overall shape of the image on the top is a triangle, and it's comprised of smaller components of a different shape, in this case, a square. So in the A image, this is representing the overall shape of the triangle of the upper image. And so this is linked with a global bias. So you're more likely to process the peripheral aspects of the image. And so coming back to the title of the talk, you're more likely to see the forest before the trees, so to speak. And so, as I said, the literature indicates that you're more likely to choose this image if you're in a positive state. So you're seeing more broadly. And then in contrast, the image B was comprised of the smaller parts of the image. And so this is a local bias. So you're seeing the more narrow, and you're looking at the central parts of the image. So as I said, those in the negative state are more likely to see narrow. So seeing the trees before the forest. And so this task has been done in animals. So of course, first in the primates, and now it's being done in several other species. So we see here some dogs, some chicks, and on the right is actually in fish. And so these tasks were done primarily to look at just purely visual processing to understand how animals see images. But no one has actually looked to see if the emotional state of the animal is affecting how they're interpreting this picture. And so what we wondered was whether we could do this task in cows and to look at if the emotional state of the cow is affecting their performance in the task. And so our study objective was to explore whether this attentional scope task could be a novel method of assessing emotional state in cows. And so the way we manipulated emotional state was in the housing environment. So if you were here for Emma's talk, she went into some details on how we manage these cows. And so here we had full-time cow-calf contact. So the cows were with their calves for 24 hours apart from milking. And then we had a half-time treatment where the cows were with their calves for only part of the day. so about 10 hours. And then they were separated at night in freestall housing. So how did we teach the cows this task? So we did a simple discrimination task where we trained cows to associate two pictures with a reward or a punishment. So the top picture here, for the purpose of the rest of this talk, I'll refer to this cross as the positive image. So you can see these two pictures have the same shape. So the overall shape is a cross made of smaller crosses. So this was the positive picture, and the bottom picture is now an overall circle made of the same shape but smaller circles. So that was the negative picture. And so we trained the cows to touch their nose to the positive picture to get a reward. So she correctly touched the picture and got her reward. And then in contrast, the negative picture, they were taught not to go, and they had 30 seconds to decide. So she's there, she's wondering what's going on, but she still has to wait. But if she had gone, she would have received a punishment, and that was underneath the TV instead of the food, it was a waving plastic bag. So the behind the scenes, we had someone delivering the rewards and the punishments. And every day the cows had a sequence of 10 images. And these were initially at a rate of 40% negative, and then we moved it up to 50% negative. So cows had to learn this task, and they needed to learn over 80% correct over 2 consecutive days. And on average, this took 8 days for the cows to learn. And 1 in 3 cows failed to learn in the required time frame. I'm sure they could have learned, but we had quite a strict timeline. So the purpose of the test was to see what part of this picture did the cows learn? What part did they attend to and focus on? So if they were trained to go to the cross, and now at test, what happened was we presented a picture that now switched the shapes. So the top picture has the overall cross. So this is the global picture. And we expect cows to go to this picture if they're in a more positive state. And the bottom picture, the cross now is only in the smaller components. And we expect the cows to go to this one if they're in a more negative state. So we have the global picture on the top and the local picture on the bottom. And again, at test, we had 10 images. We maintained providing a positive and negative. And now we provide 2 global test pictures and 2 local. And then we tested them for 2 days. And so the results I'll show to you are for 12 cows, and we had 6 on each of the treatments. And so here on the y-axis, I'm showing you the percentage of images that they approached. And so as expected, they continued to go to the positive and they didn't go to the negative. And so now if we look at how often they went to the global and the local pictures, what we see is they more often went to the local. But you can also see that they didn't actually go that much. So when we look by treatment, I looked at how many of these cows chose to go to each of the test pictures. And what we saw was that there was a large bias in the halftime cows. So they never went to the global, they always went to the local. But the design of this task was a go, no-go task. So they could also choose to not go to any of them, or they could choose to go to both. And when we look at that, we still see that the halftime cows never went to the global. But the full-time cows did choose to go to global and sometimes to the local. So why do we see a bias to this local image? If we look in the animal literature, we do see that other animal species also tend to show a bias to the local, but some other species a bias to the global. So potentially this is an adaptive strategy for cows in how they're visually processing information. So this focus on the center of the image could be related to being a prey species where they really need to devote attention to a specific threat, for instance, and eliminate irrelevant information. And is this potentially an indicator of emotional state? Well, we do see that this, the local picture would suggest a narrowed attentional scope, which was linked to a negative state in humans. We saw the halftime cows showed a bias to the local, which potentially suggests maybe that they're experiencing a negative state or at least a less positive state. And whether that is related to something in their environment, these repeated separations from their calf potentially led to this bias that we see. But of course, we would need to use this method in conjunction with other methods of emotional state to really determine if it's something that is valid to measure emotional state. And that's other aspects of the project that we're working on. So yeah, so thank you very much. And thanks to our funders and everyone who helped.
Thank you very much for interesting talk and testing us. Do we have any questions? One in the end.
Hi, Heather, you know me. Beautiful talk. Brilliant, I think but it kept me thinking, how is this different from a judgment bias truly? Because basically the two images you provide are like somewhat ambiguous, and maybe one is a little bit less than the other. That being said, you're having a look at two different treatments. So if it's confirmed with increased sample size, very cool. Do you see any advantages in using this method compared to a more classic judgment bias or attention bias test?
So I guess your first question, how is it different from judgment bias? I mean, I guess, is there an ambiguity in the images potentially? However, I would argue that they have seen all aspects of those pictures. They're just now in a different format. That could also induce some level of uncertainty. And yeah, maybe it is now a mix of attention bias and judgment bias. I'm not sure. And whether this is a method that is more advantageous, has the same amount of training. So right now, I don't see it being necessarily an advantage. But in this sense, it is providing us some more information on maybe how they're actually processing visual information. And I think that's interesting to link back to the way that we're feeling, how we're interpreting our visual field. So right now, no, I don't think there's necessarily advantages.
Next question is here.
Nice presentation. I am Pawan from India. Did you also correlate this positive and negative state of the animal emotional state with their behavioral expression in terms of milking, temperament, and
So did we use other measures to verify the emotional state? We did. So, I mean, I don't have those results today, but we did do a lot of other behavioral assessments. I did do a judgment bias that I'm not presenting here today. We also looked at physical indicators. So we were looking at body postures, ear position, eye aperture, head position, and tail position. So we're hoping to link those indicators back to this test, to our judgment bias test. And we also had some physiological measures like oxytocin that potentially could also be an indicator of how they're feeling. So we're hoping to kind of use this series of measures to try to more in depth understand what's going on.
thank you.
Several questions. Now there's one over there and then one here and then one online. So I will take the one online while you're walking to the person over there. It's Janne Winter Christensen. She asks, how well validated is this test for humans? I chose B, but do not feel like I am in a negative affective state. I also choose B.
Yeah, and I also chose B, but I did this when I was submitting my PhD thesis. So I felt like I had a reason to choose B. Yeah, I mean, I think the validity of it in humans, It has been verified with self-reported, as is kind of common with verifying emotional states in humans. But of course, that's a bigger discussion of, the self-evaluation and what someone's reporting to the experimenter we take to be true. And so I would say in that sense, it's regarded as a valid assessment of emotional state in humans.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, but actually we're out of time. So maybe you can approach Heather in the break, in the lunch,
Yeah, come find me.
because we need to go. So the next talk will be given by Ilya Bitkomet. Hope I pronounce your name right. Play behavior, Danbury, Derek Hoffs. So welcome.
So hello everyone, my name is Eléa. I come from France. I'm finishing my master degree and I'm really happy to be here to present to you a study I did last year at Aarhus University with Margit Bak-Jensen and Maya Bertelsen. It's an amazing topic and also challenging. It's the play behavior of calves in two co-calf contact systems. I really hope that you will enjoy it as I enjoyed it. So let's go. On most of the time on dairy farms, the cows and the calves are separated quickly after birth. And this practice is more and more criticized according for ethical issues, and more research are conducted in order to identify what could be the alternative to keep the cows and the calves together. In this study, we decided to study two co-calf contact systems, a full-time and a half-time co-calf contact. In the full-time co-calf contact systems, the cows and the calves were together always during the day, except during the two milking times. In the half-time co-calf contact system, the cows and the calves were together between the milking times, namely 10 hours per day. We decided to study a half-time co-calf contact system because it could be a more feasible solution for the future. So we compare the two co-calf contact systems according to play behavior of calves, which could be a promising indicator for animal welfare. So play behaviors included in this study, locomotor play, either individual if it was performed with only one calf, or parallel when at least two calves were performing the behavior, and social play behavior, including frontal pushing when two calves or two individuals were pushing each other front to front, and headbutting when one calf were pushing another individual with her forehead on the neck or the body of the other individual. These social play behavior were performing without withdrawing and or aggressive behavior. We also observed object play, which can be performed with straw or pen fixtures. About the observation protocol, so we had 4 co-calf pairs in one large straw-bedded pen of around 70 square meters, namely 14 square meters per co-calf pair. We had 6 blocks of 2 pens, 1 pen for each treatment, and we observed the calf during 24 hours, 3 weeks, and 7 weeks after birth. We observed 2 random calves per pen, and so in total we had 12 full-time calves and 12 half-time calves. For the analysis, we then did the average of the 2 calves for each pen. So we did 4 hypotheses. At the beginning, we wanted to compare the 2 treatments, full-time and half-time. As in the literature, you can read that maternal contact could stimulate calf for playing. We assumed that full-time calves could play more because they are more with the dam during the day. But on the other hand, half-time calves are during more space available daily because they are less with the mom, so maybe they could perform more locomotor play. So we analyze the data with linear mixed model. And so here you have the duration of play behaviors. And we can see that there is no difference between the 2 treatments. So whatever the treatment, calves allocated the same amount of time for playing. So then if you interpret the total play behavior as an indicator of positive animal welfare, this could show that there is the same level of animal welfare in the 2 treatments for calves. But the story does not end here, hopefully. So when we compare each category of play behavior, then we can see that half-time calves perform more frontal pushing and had a tendency to perform more parallel locomotor play than full-time calves. And this behavior, or the play behavior requiring the most space, Indeed, it has been measured that on pasture, on average, a cow is using 13, 14 meters to perform locomotor play. And so parallel locomotor play could need even more space. On the other hand, frontal pushing, it has been measured that on average, they are using 4 square meters. Also, full-time calves perform more headbutting on calves. And so this result could show that there is an effect of more space available daily that allow half-time calves to perform more play behavior requiring more space. And full-time calves could perform more headbutting because they could switch from frontal pushing to headbutting behavior from frontal pushing requiring more space to headbutting requiring less space. Another interesting behavior was that calves performed sometimes frontal pushing with a dam, but never with an alien cow, which could show that to play frontal pushing with an adult, you should have a kind of personal bond with him, like a maternal bond. Then we explored the effect of the week, because it can be read in the literature that as they got older, the calf will play more social play and less locomotor play. Here again, you have the duration of play behavior in seconds and 24 hours, week 3 and week 7. And what we can see is like calves perform more frontal pushing, which is also considered as social play, and less parallel locomotor play and less oblique play as they got older. And that is kind of the same in the literature. Finally, we decided to explore the effect of the period of the day and to see what is the distribution of play behavior during the day. Because in the 2 treatments, you have a variation of the maternal presence and also of the space available. So we assumed that calves could play the most when the cows are not in the pen because of more space available. How did we did that? So we divided the day in 4 periods. Morning milking time from 5 to 5:30 in the morning, afternoon milking time from 3:30 to 4 in the afternoon, the time between the milking time, and the rest of the day was the night. And so here you have the hourly rate of locomotor play behavior. And that we can see is like full-time calves played the most during the 2 milking times. And half-time calves played the most during the afternoon milking time. And they played even more locomotor play than full-time calves. So if we put that in a scheme, so again, we assume that calves play the most when the cows were not in the pen. And so here in yellow, you are the period of the day when the calves perform the most locomotor play. And it's exactly when the cows left the pen that is indicated with a star. So indeed, calves play the most when the cows are not in the pen, but more precisely, they play the most when the cows left the pen. So this could be an effect of space suddenly available and that the calves are taking advantage of the space for playing. But this could be also an effect of external stimulation linked to the departure of the cows, because in the literature, we can read that external situations such as adding straw in the pen could stimulate calf for playing. To conclude, we had no difference in total play behavior between the 2 cow-calf contact systems. However, half-time calves, which were in the treatment with more space available daily, performed more play behavior requiring the most space, namely frontal pushing and a tendency for more parallel locomotor play. And so that could be because they have more space available daily. On the other hand, we also observed that calves play more when the cows left the pen. And that could be also an effect of more space shouldn't be available, but it can be also discussed. Another interesting comparison was that we had no difference in total play behavior between the 2 cow-calf contact systems, but we observed more play behavior in comparison to other studies. And these previous studies, we had, so it was the same number of cows, same age, but there was no maternal contact and there was much less space available. And we observed some more locomotor play, more frontal pushing, and also more total play behavior in comparison to these studies. So this could be linked to more space available in the study, or the maternal presence, or a combination of both. And further studies could be interesting to know what could be the answer. Thank you very much for your attention. I really would like to thank Margit and Maya for the supervision, and also ISAE and the Humane Society International who helped me to be here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your nice talk and keeping very good in time. So maybe we have some questions. At the end, there's one. That's 3 questions here. And 1 online.
So thank you very much. Megan Hain from the States. Really interesting talk. One of the things I was kind of interested about is that space is something that's so restricted a lot of times for calves. And I really was intrigued by the fact that when the cows left, we saw that sort of like bounce and play behavior. What are your thoughts on maybe looking at sort of variations of part-time, space within groups and that? Because I see that as a, I know some of our farmers would throw a fit, but, giving space, but not necessarily full day as an option.
You mean, you mean giving the space for calves to have more space and no maternal contact?
So, I mean,
Sorry.
one of the things I think is this was a sort of measure of maternal contact, but to me, the space was one of the things that really came out as being a huge sort of reward, that opportunity to really express these behaviors.
Yeah.
And it's something that's so hard for us to sort of implement a lot of times on farms because, the spaces of a, it's much more restricted a lot of times. But this idea of, allowing even sort of part-time space, could be something that could be quite useful.
Yes, I think that what is missing actually is that we need to see if space is really the most important, to have only the calves in this large straw-bedded pen. But the part in here in the halftime, they had also the same amount of space. They have just more space. Yeah.
Thank you. There's 1 question here at the first row.
Thank you for this talk. Susanne Weiblinger from the University of Veterinary Medicine, Vienna. You had the peak in the part-time contact group, especially in the afternoon. I guess the calves were suckling before the cows left for the whole night, because that is what we observed in other part-time contact systems. So could it be linked also to being fed well and having no hunger at that moment, so they were not playing a lot in the morning?
Yes, it could be. Yes, it could be a solution, and also yes, it could be a hypothesis. And also, yes, we assume that it's also because they don't have the departure of the cows in the morning, and they could be also waiting the cows for suckling actually in the morning. But yes, that's also in line with your hypothesis.
Thank you. That's
Thank you.
a question over there.
Hello, I'm Kamboj from India. How did you prevent the suckling when the cows were in contact with their mothers? Did you allow suckling, or if you prevented, how that was prevented? And another question is whether mothers also participated in this play. Did you observe that?
Sorry?
Did the mothers also participated in play, or did they motivate the cows to play? And if cows were allowed suckling,
Yeah.
or if they are not allowed, how the suckling was prevented?
So suckling was when the cows and the cat were together, they were suckling. There was no prevention for that. And for yes, play behavior with the dam, it was the calves or the dam were initiating the behavior.
There's 1 question at the end, but there's also 1 online. So we'll see how we go with the time. So I'll read the question from Marie Ruig Pons. Thanks for the talk. Could it be that play is not so positive? For example, in dogs, what we can sometimes call play is in effect a way to get rid of their stress. So could it be that calves are stressed by the departures of their dam?
Yes, that's something that, play behavior is really, it could be a promising indicator for animal welfare, but it's also challenging for that. And yes, we are discussing on that it could be also more frontal pushing in halftime calves could be explained that maybe they need to have more competition than for when the cows return to the pen in the morning. They need to be first to arrive to the pen, so to the cows. So it could show also negative thing. And yes, it's something definitely that can be discussed.
Yeah, thank you. I think we have to make a stop here. So thank you very much for your presentation. The next presentation will be given by Verena Grösbacher. about is calves' motivation to play affected by milk allowance and social environment?
Hello, I'm Verena from Boca University from Vienna. Yes, I'll be talking about the motivation to play in dairy calves. So play behavior has been associated with positive and pleasurable emotions, and it is said to be sensitive to welfare impairments. For example, play is reduced with the low milk allowance or when calves are experiencing pain after disbedding. However, in many studies, the level of play is concomitant with the level of physical development. So if calves have a higher level of play, they often have a good physical development. And so this experiment is part of a larger study. We try to assess or to answer the question whether play behavior itself is perceived as positive. And we tried this by trying to separate the play behavior from this physical development. And this is based on treatments of milk allowance and the social environment. In this overall experiment, we had uniform groups where all calves received the same milk allowance. And in the uniform low group, all the calves were expected to have low levels of play. In the uniform high group, where all calves received a high milk allowance, we expected them to have a high level of play. And then we had the mixed group, where we had 2 calves and a high milk allowance, and we expected these to have high levels of play. And we had 1 calf on a low milk allowance, and we also expected this one to have a high level of play because it was housed with the other calves and because of the play contagion effect. We did this study at the research farm in Prague, and we had 22 groups, and we measured locomotor play when they were 4 and 8 weeks old using accelerometers. And of the results of this first study were that we found that the play levels in the uniform groups were according to their milk allowances. So calves on the uniform low group had low levels of play, and calves in the uniform high group had high levels of play. However, in the mixed group, the calf with the low milk allowance had also low levels of play. And contrary to our expectation, the 2 calves on the high milk allowance had depressed levels of play similar to the calf on the low milk allowance. In the current experiment, we used these calves to measure the motivation to play. And we tried to divide the different phases of motivation. So first, there's the anticipatory phase. That's the interval when the calf or the animal is waiting to get a reward, and it is associated with high arousal, and it is said to measure the sensitivity towards the reward. After the animal gets the reward, it's consummating it. This phase is associated with medium arousal, and thereafter there's the post-consummatory phase of relaxing calf, and it's associated with satisfaction and relaxation, and with low arousal states. And according to literature, the anticipatory phase is said to measure the wanting of the reward, and the consummatory and post-consummatory phase is said to measure the liking of it. And in the current study, we only looked at the first 2 phases, and we did not look at the physical reward, but the reward was to be able to perform play behavior. So the aim of the study was to assess the reward of a calf joining a playful situation with its pen mates, and we tried to assess it when the calves had different levels of play behavior from the home pen. And we tried to measure the sensitivity towards the reward and the value of consummating it. And our hypothesis was that the uniform low calves and the mixed calves differed from the uniform high calves. We trained the calves when they were 3 weeks old, and we tested them 4 times altogether, twice a week when they were 4 and 8 weeks old. And we selected 1 focal calf per group. So in the uniform groups, they were randomly selected. And in the mixed group, it was always the calf and the low milk allowance. And the pen mates were always the partners for the calves in the experiment. So the reward was to join at the playful situation. And we had the focal calf in the holding pen for 3 minutes while it was watching its partner calves inside the arena. And thereafter it left the holding pen and joined the partner calves inside the arena for 9 minutes for the play phase or consumatory phase. Yes, it works. So in the holding pen, we observed behavioral transitions and the gazing towards the arena, and also the latency to reach the arena once it left the holding pen. And I think this one does not work, and I'm not going to play a calf, but we observed locomotor play and social play of all the calves inside the arena. Then we evaluated it with general and generalized linear mixed models, and we corrected the p-values for multiple testing. So the results in the holding pen, we did not find any differences between behavioral transitions. We also did not find any differences between treatments in gazing towards the arena and latency to reach the arena. So we concluded that there's simply no difference in the reward sensitivities between the treatments, and that it could be that all the calves were motivated to join a playful situation. Inside the arena, we did not find, so we evaluated all the calves inside the arena, not just the focal for this one, and we found that there's no difference between treatments and locomotor play. And we think they had the same value of reward across treatments. So this could be due to the first study where we found, well, we did find significant effects of calves performing more locomotor play when they were in the uniform high group. However, our effect sizes were rather small or smaller than in other studies. And also the size of our arena was smaller than in other studies. So it could be that it was not as strongly rewarding as it could have been. For social play, we did find that the calves in the uniform high group performed more social play than the calves in the mixed group. So this could be due to negative play contagion in the mixed group, with the one calf and the low milk allowance depressing the play behavior of its penmates. But also it has been found that the similarity in the personality trait of playfulness depressed social play in rats, and that the similarity in the physical development has been found to depress play in antelopes. So it could have been that the calves in the mixed group may have been more dissimilar, that it depressed play behavior. Further, we assessed the role effects. So we compared the focals and the partner calves, and we found that the focal calves performed more locomotor play than the partner calves. So we think that the anticipatory phase actually increased the motivation for locomotor play. And locomotor play has been shown to be performed during phases of anticipation. So maybe it's performed during the whole phase of, during different phases of motivation. We do not think it's a rebound effect because they were only in the holding pen for 3 minutes, and rebound effects were found after several days. So we don't think that might be the case. Further, we looked into the interaction of treatment and role, and we did not find any effects. So focal calves did not differ between treatments within focal calves. For social play, we did not find any differences between focal and partner calves. And this has also been shown to not build up after social deprivation. And also we did not find an interaction between treatment and role. So overall, this study furthered our knowledge only to a rather limited extent. And we simply selected the wrong focal calves, mainly because we didn't know. However, it would have been really interesting to look at the calves from the mixed high treatment, because we were able to separate the physical development from the play levels, as we had calves with a really good physical development and artificially low play levels. Also, this study would have been improved if we would have included measures of valence in the anticipatory phase, as behavioral transitions mainly measure arousal, and also to include the post-consumatory phase. So the take-home messages are that the motivation for locomotor play does build up after a short anticipatory phase, but in our case, it's not affected by the level of spontaneous play in the home pen. And also the motivation for social play does seem to be, does not build up after the short anticipatory phase, and it seems to be affected by the social environment. So thank you to the farm staff, to Katharina and Dalila for all the help in the barn, and to you for your attention.
Thank you very much for this talk, and you kept to time as well. There's a question over there. Mike, yeah.
First of all, thank you for this lovely presentation. I was wondering, for the anticipatory behaviors, do you think it would be possible to separate the effect of the play and the effect of the social deprivation? Because it maybe you're assessing motivation to reunite with the partners and not with to play, not that they both come together, but would be possible in some way separate?
I know we thought about this, so it's not possible afterwards in this experiment. And we looked at the different behaviors inside the holding pen. I looked for signs of frustration. I did not see or record, or I did not see any vocalizations, but I've not formally recorded them. But yeah, that was a thought that we had afterwards as well.
Yeah. Any more questions? There's one over there, but then I'll read an online question while you're walking over there. That's from Sarah Capel. Questions for Verena. Great talk. Could it be that you tested social motivation rather than motivation to play when separating the test calves from the rest of the group?
Yes, possibly, but at the same time, they did, like, all of the calves played in the arena as well. So I think they did like to play in the arena, but yes, you're right. We could not, we were not able to separate the motivation for social for joining the other calves.
So the link. Yeah, next question.
Heather Neve, Aarhus University. I wondered if, so was the cue to indicate that they were about to get the play, was that just simply them entering the holding pen? And so did you have a condition where they didn't get to go in the pen? Like, I'm just thinking of if that's maybe why you didn't see, if you actually were inducing anticipation, because I wonder if just simply bringing the calf into a holding pen, they're going to do those behaviors.
No, we did not
Anyways.
have this kind of treatment.
Yeah. Any more questions? Don't see any questions, and no one online questions. So it's a really nice study. I've done similar things with both pigs and sheep. So it's nice to see this type of research. I was thinking about the hunger level. Maybe even if we think that 6 liters is the low level, I know in some countries they give down to 4 liters of milk per day. Do you think that could have affected if you have gone down even more in amount of milk?
Yes, so in other studies, they went down to 5 liters or had a higher difference between the calves. It could be. We didn't want to go down any further, but it could be. But they had 6 liters of difference when they were 12 weeks old. However, when they were older, they already received the high milk allowance for 5 weeks. So maybe their physical development not so much higher, so the energy requirements were higher as well, and the difference was not as big as anymore.
Maybe, maybe you do more research in this area. Yeah. Any more questions? No. Thank you very much for your presentation. And now it's time to move to the next room if you want to change, and we will change chairperson as well. So Susanna Weibring is taking over.
Yes, welcome. From my side, I'm Susanne Weiblinger from the University of Veterinary Medicine in Vienna and the Senior Vice President of the ISAE as well, and involved in the organization, as you may have realized. And now the next talk and the last talk before we have the poster presentation is by Björn Forkman. 2 cows need to be social. 2 cows need to be social to be happy. Please go on, Björn.
Thank you. Yes. Actually, I think it's the wrong title. And this one would have been better, because it's very much a pilot study. Let me start from the beginning. All right, so if you're looking at personality in humans, a very common way of describing personality in humans is using the big five. And in a slightly modified version, that is also what is found in animals. So if you know the big five on your 5 fingers, you can see that these are not exactly the same as the one generally mentioned. So for example, boldness activity is usually termed neuroticism, but otherwise it's more or less the same. Gosling and John in 1999 did a review of these in animals and said that, all right, so the first 4 probably occur in most animals. The conscientiousness was quite difficult to find in any animal. In 2018, I think I published a paper in which they tried to translate these personality traits into corresponding coping attributes. So to the right here, you can see what are called personality traits in animals. These are actually personality traits which correspond to coping. And the idea here is that coping and the idea of active and proactive and reactive copers somehow relates to the personality traits. Now, personality traits are thought to be things or motivations that are constant over time, constant across situations, and in a way they are a predisposition to act or to feel or be motivated in a certain way. So it makes sense to somehow try to relate these to welfare. The problem is, if you all start asking, all right, so what's a happy personality? For the personality traits in humans, a happy personality is not very well defined. Simply because, for example, if you take the neuroticism. Now, neuroticism doesn't sound very nice, does it? You don't want to be neurotic. But just a little bit of paranoia is good for you. I mean, you don't want to be incredibly trusting and having no fear whatsoever for any situations. You're going to run into quite a lot of problems if you're like that. And it's the same with all of the personality traits. If you try to look into the happy personality literature in humans, you find that, okay, so perhaps there is something about an open personality, some extraversion is related to happiness, but not too much, just a little bit. If you then go to the animal literature and say, all right, so if we try to take a personality trait, which we believe is related to positive animal welfare indicators. Now, positive animal welfare indicators have received quite a lot of attention for the last 10 years, 15 years. And one aspect which often mentioned is exploration. So animals that explore are supposed to have a good welfare, be in a good welfare state and be having okay welfare. So that would mean that actually, if you are an animal that has a lot of curiosity, a lot of inquisitiveness in you, then you're probably in a good welfare state. So what happened in this study was that we had 21 cows in one section of a stable, 12 heifers in another, and 10 calves in another. There are 3 observers. All of them observed both cows, heifers, and calves. But unfortunately, they observed each animal was assigned to one observer, so to speak. Now, they did behavior observations for a very long time, a month and a half actually. And at the end of that a month and a half, they were asked to score the personality of the animals in a 1 to 10 step scale. And a couple of hours later, they were asked to do a QBA on the same animals. So that's one of the weaknesses of this study. It's the same person doing both the QBA and the personality. The QBA is the qualitative behavior assessment. So it's a method for trying to assess the immediate emotion of the animal. What you're doing is that you're on a visual analog scale, you are using adjectives or descriptors. You say an animal is curious, it's aggressive, it's social, it's bored, indifferent, etc. So you're not describing the behavior, you're describing how the behavior is performed. There is a list of descriptors in the welfare quality protocol, and that is what we used. So this was the personality of the animals. And as you would expect, for example, younger animals are more explorative, or thought to be of a more explorative personality. They're also thought to be more bold, to be more highly social, more active, more peaceful, but not really any difference in dominance. But also, as you can see, there is a very large spread between animals. So individual differences in animals, which is something which we know since previous studies. All right. So we did a QBA. When doing your QBA, you have 20 descriptors. And what you need to do, of course, is to try to reduce them into a manageable number of components. So in the welfare quality, in most cases, the first component relates to welfare. And the second component relates to the activity of the animal, or level of activity in the animal. So in this case here, we're doing a PCA to reduce the number of variables into two components, and we're using the data from our own study. Yeah? And this PC1, we then correlated with the different personality traits using observers and animal type as factors in this linear regression. And as you can see, what comes out is not what we had hoped, the explorative part, but rather the highly social part. So highly social are very, very significantly correlated with PC1, i.e. animal welfare. So when you get a result like this, the first thought is, something is wrong. I don't believe my results. So what we did was to take, all right, the second factor. The second factor is supposed to relate to activity. As you can see, there is one personality trait called active. And lo and behold, all right, so it's not significant, but it's 0.08. So yes, it seems to be working. Now, all right, perhaps there's something wrong with our PCA. Perhaps it's something with our cows, the way we reduce the variation that affects the results. So what we could do is to use the welfare quality weights from their PCA and apply those to our cows. And we get more or less the same result. And even better regression. Now, the issue here for me is I don't have a good explanation. I have no clue. So if anyone has a clue as to why highly social animals are thought to have much better welfare than animals that are perceived as being explorative, or animals that are perceived as being bold, i.e. not fearful, or animals that are peaceful. I mean, why are they not more relevant than sociality? I would like to hear those suggestions now. Thank you.
Thank you, Björn. Maybe the answer lies in this room and in our meeting as well.
Fingers crossed.
So we have many questions. I start here in the front.
No, only suggestions, please, no questions.
Mustafa Farali, University of Calgary, Canada. Thank you so much for this nice presentation. I don't know, I was outside, maybe I missed something. This is my question about the definition of the descriptors. Have you made the definition for every descriptor?
Yes, when you do a QBA, you are sitting down and agreeing on but there is no written description. But you you go through the descriptors and agree on what they mean. Yeah.
Thank you.
And usually, the QBA can be much discussed, but in general, it has a very good in terms of reliability.
Thank you, Bjorn, for your work. It's beautiful. Ben Lecor from University of Bristol. I wonder, like I've watched videos a lot of cows, and there's something that is quite consistent is how pleasing it is to see cows being groomed by brushes or by other cows. And I think it translates to our need of positive social interactions, you know, and I think that's what you got, honestly, is that your observers were very emotionally impacted by seeing cows having positive affiliative interactions. And probably that's why it's weighted so high in terms of how, oh, it's very weird to see myself speaking, why it's rated so high in terms of welfare, relationship with welfare.
Sorry, I don't agree with you with the brushes, because actually when you test each animal group by itself, I mean, as you can see, the sample sizes are quite small. The biggest effect is for calves and heifers. The calves don't have access to brushes. But perhaps it is something to do with the play behavior, that if you see animals playing, you think, oh, well, they are very social. But
or even grooming, you know, like allo grooming is.
Yeah, allo grooming could be. That might be a possibility.
Then Maria, and please short questions, short answers, because we have several.
Maria Ceballos from University of Calgary. So my question is, you say PC1, but you didn't present which terms of the QBA were like having weight in that specific PC. So like that is a little bit difficult to think about a why. So if you check which maybe, I don't know, which terms were having more weight for that, maybe you can find an answer for that. What do you think about that?
No, I mean, so in the first one here, or in the welfare quality one, it's predefined what the weights are predefined, so to speak, from several other studies. And yes, there is a correlation, for example, between highly social in personality and social in the QBA, the descriptor social in the QBA, as for active in the personality and active in the QBA. So there is something there. It's just why does it come out as being high welfare? That's what I don't understand.
Okay, then here in the front, please, Margit, and then there was one. I cannot take everybody. Sorry, you please have then, because we are in time.
Margit Bach-Jensen from Aarhus University. Now, my question to you is, how well differentiated are these 20 descriptors in the QBA? And would it, I mean, did you want suggestions? I mean, would it be better to look at behavioral elements to record use traditional ethological methods to
Yes.
try and describe what goes on instead of using QBA?
Yes, I mean, we're doing that just now. So thank you.
There was somewhere there, but I do not know exactly. So no hand up, probably you then. Or David, was it you? No. Yes.
Hi, Mathilde Coutin from Aarhus University. I was just wondering about the distinction between personality as a long-term element and moods or affective states. How did you ensure that what you were recording was actually personality and not just a accumulation of affective states? Did you look at the consistency of the recordings?
No, I mean, the personality, I mean, the definition of personality is that it's a long-term thing. And these observers, these persons, had worked with the animals for a month and a half. So the rationale is that they know their animals, and that is what they are supposed to assign them to. So obviously you could say, all right, so no, we didn't look at, say, a year earlier, whether that's the same as at this time. No.
Thank you.
And then the last question by David Arni. And in the meantime, the poster presenters can line up and you can maybe give the presentation on it.
Thank you, Björn. Do you think it might be the other way around? Do you think your title might be, do cows need to be happy to be social?
No, that's a good point. Got it all wrong. Should have reversed it. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Björn. And yes, thanks for the poster presenters already being there. Maybe the first one at the moment. Christina Rufener can already go up. And if the technicians can put on the presentations, please. 2 more minutes. Relax a bit, but please stay here for the poster presentations. Maybe you can give an announcement in between. We use the time.
Hi, I'm Rachel Cadell. I'm one of the 2 student representatives for ISAE alongside Saskia Kliphouse. And I just wanted to make a quick announcement about our final student event, which is today at lunch. And this is open to everyone, students, professors, the industry, everybody can come. And we have table topics for lunch. So each table will be labeled with a different topic. We have 10 different topics. There's tables labeled inside and outside if you want to participate. The topics include abnormal behavior, cognition and emotion, euthanasia, human-animal interactions, pain, social behavior, technology and welfare, welfare education, welfare policy, and play behavior. So if you want to, we would greatly appreciate you joining. Just join whatever table you're interested in. And if that table is full, there should be another table labeled with your topic as well. Thank you.
Thank you for filling the time. And hope we will see the presentation soon. What I meant, Björn, that the response lies maybe in this room is, why are we here? Of course, because we want to hear very high quality science, but also because we like to be so social. And so we were rated as having negative emotions in one of the talks before. Many people, I think that there's a lot of positive emotion in this room. But that's, of course, a hypothesis to be tested. Okay. Any problem with the? Ah, okay.
So they can make their video presentation without the picture. So just put.
Okay, if there's no, you can have a look at the posters then, so you see something visual later on, but now here the short presentations. So first, Christina Rufener, can straw or compass satisfy the routing motivation?
Yes, hi, I'm Christina. Oh, I should take that off. Christina I'm a research associate at the Center for Proper Housing of Ruminants and Pigs. And I have to get closer. Thanks. And in our study, we were asking whether minimal straw, deep straw, or compost could satisfy the rooting motivation of fattening pigs. So the pigs were tested either with a classical preference test or a conditioned place preference test. And in both tests, pigs had to choose between freely accessible apple slices or apple slices that were hidden in sawdust. So that was to mimic rooting, basically. And we hypothesized that pigs with deep straw or compost that could already root in their home pens would be less motivated to root in the tests and therefore just go straight away to feed on the apple slices and vice versa. So if you want to hear more about rooting pigs or want to discuss behavioral tests to assess this kind of motivation, I'm very happy to talk to you and come to poster number 90. It's in the first room in the back on the right-hand side.
Thank you for keeping time so well. And now we have Olivia Bolton on the effect of foster cow rearing on dairy calf health and welfare.
Hi, yes, thank you for the introduction. So I'm Olivia Bolton from Harper Adams University in the UK, and I have produced a poster from research we carried out last year looking at the effects of foster cow rearing on dairy calf health and welfare. So as we've heard from many earlier presentations, the effects of different cow-calf systems are not fully understood. So with this study, we hope to demystify some of those effects. And I look forward to speaking to some of you at poster 96. Hopefully it doesn't interrupt your lunch too much, and yeah, speak to you then. Thank you.
Thanks again. Now Sandra Ospina will speak on pasture-based dairy cow and calf suckling system.
Hi, I'm Sandra Ospina from the University of Tasmania in Australia. Today, I want to tell you about our suckling system that is pasture-based. We kept our cows and calves together for 10 weeks. And after that, we analyzed some productivity indicators and also some developmental effects of the contact. We performed an open field test when our heifers, when they were 8 months old, and got some interesting results. So please pass by my poster, is the number 97. So I stay there. Thank you.
Thank you very much again. Laura Field will now send her poster.
Hi, I'm Laura Field from the Animal Welfare Science Centre at the University of Melbourne. The early life social environment across species affects your cognition, behavioural development, your social capability and your fearfulness, and that's contact with your dam and also with same age peers. In modern dairy systems, cow-calf systems can be difficult to implement. And so to look at an alternative to this, we reared calves with non-maternal dry cows. We had 3 to see if there were similar effects of adult contact on their development. So we had 3 treatments. We had calves reared in groups at pasture with adult contact with dry cows. We had calves reared at pasture without adult contact, and we had calves reared in groups in sheds, which is standard Australian commercial practice. When the calves were 18 months old, we did a novel object test, and we found interesting results from environmental and physical and social enrichment. So I'll be at poster number 98. If you come and chat to me then, I'm happy to chat about the results then.
Thanks very much. Now we have Laura Candeletto speaking about laying hens.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Laura Candelotto. I'm a PhD student at the University of Penn. And my poster is about how the presence of a novel object might affect the movement behavior of laying hens within their home environment. So specifically, we place novel objects into the litter area of a commercial aviary system. And we then also measured the movement behavior by using little tracking devices and place them into backpacks and then put those backpacks on the birds. So I've had a really cool movement plot, which you can't see now, but if you want to see how the birds reacted and adjusted to the presence of this novel object, please come and see me at my poster, which is number 99. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Now we will hear Regine Victoria Holt. Probably I pronounced wrongly, I don't know.
So, hi, my name is Regine Holt. I'm from Norway, and in Norway, peat is commonly provided to broiler chickens as an environmental enrichment. It is very popular, but however, it's not it's a non-sustainable resource really. So we want to find alternatives. So we completed a study on a commercial chicken farm where we gave the chickens loads of different litters in a nice buffet that I had a picture of, but you can't see it at the moment. So you need to go to my poster. But yeah, we wanted to find out if we can actually find an alternative to peat that was just as attractive. We also wanted to see if the different litter types, if their attractiveness varied depending on what behavior they were used for, because that will give them incentive to provide more litters to cover all behaviors, basically. We also want to see if fresh behavior was more popular than used behavior, fresh litter was more common or more attractive than used litter. And then if some of the litters maintained their attractiveness for longer. So if you want to have a look at our buffet, it's posted 100. So thank you.
Buffet sounds like lunch, but we would still have online poster presentations. Now I ask, will we have them or not? Do you what to count with? Was this a yes? Yes, video is fine, but will we have it now? That we can follow it? Okay. Is there not, yeah, we can then play them, at least the two that are here. Yeah? Yeah. Can you play it here now? So that, yeah. I read then the name João Pedro Donadio da Silva Pereira. Next one. Oluwaseun Oyelade.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Should I continue? Yes. Okay, I am Ojelade Oluwaseun Christiana from Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta. I am presenting on the influence of environmental enrichment on growth, behavior, and physiology of juveniles of Clarus garipinus under laboratory conditions. Most of our farm fish species are raised in barren tanks, which lack different forms of environmental enrichment, which could promote their growth and improve their welfare for sustainable sake. This study looked at the effects of 3 forms of environmental enrichment on a total of 120 Clarus garipinus. The fish were subjected to plant-enriched, sediment-enriched, and a combination of both, and the control as a barren tank. Their growth indices, behavior, and physiological response were examined, and it was observed that the highest growth mean weight gain was found in fish exposed to sediment-enriched. The least level of aggression was found in sediment-enriched, and consistently throughout the study period, the highest and the least glucose level was found in fish species exposed to plant and sediment forms of enrichment. So the study concluded that environmental enrichment with sediment enriched improved the growth rate and reduce the stress level of fish species under laboratory condition. Thank you.
Then I think it's now for this session. We planned originally to replay the video files from the posters that were not played or presented on Monday, but as it doesn't work, we will do that probably in the next session. But it's very late now. I think I suggest in the next session after lunch, everybody is more able to follow and we have more time for that. And you can really, we are prepared then. So have a good lunch then, enjoy, and thanks for the speakers and for the good discussion.